Mom's side were Polish Jews. They were Ashkenazis.
We demand that all hostages be immediately released.
Let's work together and make life worthwhile. Let's work together.
Mom's side were Polish Jews. They were Ashkenazis. My dad's side were Palestinian. I think it's unfair to sit here, go through such an awful thing like the Holocaust, and then to turn around and do the exact same thing to someone for longer. And we as Americans are enabling that, and that's just not right.
Question, what would you say to the people at this event, at the pro-Israel rally here?
I think that they're extremely biased. I think that they're just here because they're getting money out of it. And if they really saw things through the human lens, they wouldn't be on that side. They'd be on our side.
Here who are at this rally for Israel, would you have anything to say to them?
So many Jewish brothers and sisters, just in Chicago itself, but in Israel as well, that are fighting for Palestinian liberation right now. So they've been disillusioned of the idea that Zionism has to be conflated with Judaism, or that their Jewish identity is somehow tied to the creation of the Israeli state.
The church, he's believing in Christ. You're fucking stupid, dude. What an idiot. Shame on you! 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 Shame on you!
We're asking people to please check in at the desk here, if you would, please. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for joining us today in solidarity for Israel. I know that you understand why we postponed our scheduled Spirit of Courage benefit, and we will let you know as soon as we have confirmed date in the spring, most likely. Fortunately, our two awardees are here with us today, and you will hear from them a little later in the program. My name is Sanford Teplitzky. I am on the board of trustees of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and we welcome you here all today. Before leaving for this event, I had the privilege and honor to listen to a virtual concert that was presented by the Jerusalem Youth Chorus. The JYC was also scheduled to be with us this weekend and to appear at our Spirit of Courage benefit. The JYC, as you may know, is made up of one half Israelis and one half Palestinian students. And the purpose is to, through music and dialogue, enable the Israeli and Palestinian youth who are working for peace and justice across the lines of religion, nationality, language, and culture. The last song that they performed with Andy Grammer was called I Am Not Giving Up. I have to tell you, this was an inspiring program, and it does give me hope for a better day. In thinking of what I might say in opening remarks, my mind kept going back to the presentation that our Midwest director, Allison Sloven, gave 1 week ago today at the Quentin Road Baptist Church. And Pastor Jim Scudder from the church will be speaking to us later. And so I asked Allison, I couldn't think of any better words to deliver. Is it okay if I present yours? So these are from Allison. Ein milim, there are no words. I stand before you on behalf of the Board of Trustees of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, an organization that for decades has been committed to confronting hatred, promoting human rights, and defending the safety and security of the Jewish people worldwide. Simon Wiesenthal, after whom our center is named, was a Holocaust survivor who lost 89 members of his family. and devoted his life to ensuring the atrocities of the Holocaust were neither forgotten nor repeated. Ein milim, there are no words. To understand how another Holocaust can happen again, especially on the soil of the homeland of the Jewish people. Recently in synagogues across the world, the Jewish people began the new cycle of reading the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, from the beginning. The Torah teaches at the beginning of God's creation, when the world was chaotic and dark, God brought order by adding light. As it says in Bereshit, the 3rd verse of the 1st chapter in the book of Genesis, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God distinguished between the light and darkness. Some moments in life give you clarity, like in the beginning when God created light. God separated the light from the dark. Today, Israel is forced into a new Bereshit, a new world for Israel. For make no mistake, it will never be the same again. The light was separated from the dark. There is no gray area here. The world saw what pure evil looks like. Evil is the barbaric massacre that Hamas carried out in Israel's soil. United States Secretary of State Blinken said, quote, "Hamas's countless acts of terror bring to mind the worst of ISIS. Bodies slaughtered, bodies desecrated, young people burned alive, women raped, parents executed in front of their children, children in front of their parents. There is no legitimate justification or equivalence for this brutality. This is a darkness that Israel didn't choose, but one that has been thrust upon them. Ein milim, there are no words. But in the absence of words, we turn to each other. In the wake of the darkness and chaos visited upon us, we strive to bring light into the world and to remind the world of the moral clarity this moment demands. Our light remains undimmed. Together we will ensure that it shines even brighter now. Thank you to everyone who is here today, standing in solidarity with the sovereign state of Israel, as your voice and support sends a clear message to the Jewish people that never again are not empty words. You in this room and those around the world who are mourning and fighting with us are the hope. You are our hatikva. As long as the Jewish spirit is yearning deep in the heart, with eyes turned toward the east, looking toward Zion, then our hope, the 2,000-year-old hope, will not be lost. To be a free people in our land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem. God, you left me only words. I'd now like to turn the program over to a good friend of mine and the Jewish people, Pastor Chris Harris. He deserves all of that applause and more. Pastor Harris is the senior pastor of the Brightstar Church of God in Christ in Bronzeville, and he has ministered in more than 24 countries. He will be joined by his choir in the singing of our national anthem and Hatikva.
Consul General.
I told you he deserved the applause before. Pastor Chris, thank you so much. What a true friend to the state of Israel, the Jewish people, all of us here in Chicago. We've worked very closely together with him over the years, and we truly appreciate his friendship and support. This is the part I like the least. I'm supposed to announce the dignitaries who are in the audience, and I know that I will leave somebody out, one or more people, but I do want to make it clear that we appreciate those who have joined us today in solidarity with Israel and the Jewish people. It includes the Consul General of Israel for the Midwest, who I will introduce in a moment. Consul General, thank you for being here. From Simon Wiesenthal Center, Rabbis May and Cooper, they will both be speaking here also. Alderman Deborah Silverstein from the city, Skokie Council, Michael Lord, Andrelia Puchinsky, and I know there are others, and hopefully they will bring me the names during the presentation so I can make the proper announcement, and thank you personally for your participation in this event. I am truly privileged and honored to now introduce Yinam Cohen, the Consul General of Israel to the Midwest.
Good evening, everybody. Erev Tov. Thank you so much for joining. It means so much to us. Thank you, before I begin, to the Simon Wiesenthal Center and to our dear friend Allison. Thank you to all the organizations who support this event. God bless you, Pastor Harris. You're amazing. Shlomo Ron, of 85 years old, was one of the founders of Kibbutz Nachal Oz. On the tragic morning of Shabbat, October 7th, he was at home with his two daughters and his grandson. When Shlomo realized that Kibbutz Nachal Oz was under attack by terrorists, he made a noble decision. He told his family members to go into the security room, but he chose to stay behind. He sat on the couch in his living room, waiting. When the terrorists entered his house, they shot and killed Shlomo, and then left, assuming he was the only person there. By his sacrifice, he saved the lives of his daughters and his grandson. Shlomo's story is just one of over 1,400 heartbreaking stories and testimonies from the massacre and the acts of heroism that occurred on that fateful morning of October 7th. More than 1,400 souls, including babies, mothers, children, the elderly, entire families, and young adults, were massacred by anti-Semitic extremists from Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Over 30 Israeli communities have been destroyed, making the deadliest killing of Jews since the Holocaust. Over 200,000 Israelis have been displaced from their homes along the southern and northern borders, including entire towns like Kiryat Shmona. More than 200 civilians, including children, babies, and Holocaust survivors, were taken hostage by Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Among the casualties and hostages are also American citizens and members of other nationalities. We are relieved to hear the news about the release of Judith and Natalie Ra'anan, and we hope to welcome them back. And we hope to welcome them back in Chicago very soon. But let's remember, we demand the immediate release of all the hostages from the hands of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. When we talk about humanitarian issues, this is the most pressing humanitarian issue at stake right now. As Israel prepares for a large-scale operation to destroy and eradicate the leadership and the terrorist capabilities of Hamas, it is crucial for us to maintain our moral clarity. I'm very grateful to President Biden for providing a moral compass for the world. I'm grateful to the American Congress, to 50 governors across the country, and to the countless elected officials, spiritual leaders, community leaders, and many good American citizens for their unwavering support of Israel's right for self-defense. Let us be very clear. Hamas did not commit its heinous attacks of terrorism to advance the two-state solution or the well-being of Palestinians. They did so because they are driven by a twisted, radical ideology inspired and financed by Iran with the goal of destroying the one and only Jewish state and killing as many Jews as they can. It is therefore our moral duty to fight back and defeat Hamas in order to protect the most basic human rights for Israelis, the right for life. We are fighting against Hamas, not against the Palestinian people. And we adhere to the rules of international humanitarian law, making every effort to avoid civilian casualties. While we do that, Hamas continues to use civilians in Gaza as human shields, hiding cowardly in residential buildings, mosques, and hospitals. We must also maintain moral clarity as we confront the trivialization of the killing of Jews. We should speak out against some media outlets that create false relativism by equating the actions of the defender and the aggressor. We should speak out when false accusations are made, including by American congresswomen blaming Israel for the intentional bombing of the hospital when it was actually the work of Islamic Jihad. We should speak out very loudly when college campuses become dangerous places for Jewish and pro-Israel students, especially when the administration chooses to remain silent. Anti-Semitism takes many forms and uses sneaky methods to express the simple, bad, old hatred towards Jews. We must stand together and combat together any manifestation of anti-Semitism. Now, more than ever, it is essential to maintain our moral clarity. We will fight back. We will defeat Hamas. We will defeat Hamas. We will bring security to our country, and we will rebuild the communities that have been destroyed. We will always aspire for peace, and we will remain strong, and we will prevail. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Please join me. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you. Thank you. One more thing before I finish. It is very important. I know that many of you ask yourselves and ask us how you can help. Here's one more thing that you could do as early as tomorrow. I think the most important thing today for Israel is to know that they're not alone, that you think of them, that you're thinking of them, that you're supporting them. What I'm asking you to do today is to think of 2 or 3 Israeli friends, camp friends, family friends that you haven't spoken with for many months. Give them a call tomorrow. Tell them that you're thinking of them. Tell them that you support them. Tell them that they're not alone. It means a lot. Thank you.
I again want to thank the Consul General. I know you may not believe this, but he's kind of a busy guy these days. So he has a number of other arrangements or appointments that he needs to get to, other obligations. So he does send his apologies that he will be leaving, but it is incredibly important to have his presence here today in support of this group. Our next speaker was someone we didn't know was going to be in Chicago for today, so we are truly pleased to have him participate. Gil Hoffman is an Israeli journalist. Gil is an Israeli journalist and political correspondent who serves as executive director of Honest Reporting and was previously chief political correspondent for the Jerusalem Post. Gil?
Wow, what an amazing crowd. Woo! As a proud Israeli and as a proud Chicagoan, Chicago is the most Zionist community in the world. The love that there is for Israel permeates this room, and it's felt back home in Israel. I just got here a week ago. I was there in Israel on the worst day in the history of the state of Israel, when abominable atrocities happen that should never be tolerated by any society on earth. And that's why it's so important that you are here unifying against this. A community, I was supposed to be on a speaking tour talking about how divided the people of Israel were and how divided the people, the American Jewish community was. And that's not what I see over here. I see one. We are united in making sure that Americans will understand that what happened in Israel on October 7th is dozens of September 11ths, and we cannot let Hamas win, because if we do, there'll be more September 11ths in America. And that's why everyone in America needs to be supporting Israel in its just war. My wife is the deputy CEO of the Jerusalem Post. Today she went to the border with Gaza, and she was talking to the people from Zaka, who have been involved in so many terrorist attacks, doing the holy work of gathering together bodies, pieces of bodies, and they told her that what they saw in Kibbutz Be'eri is the worst that they've ever seen. That they were there during the Second Intifada, gathering bits of bodies after buses blew up, and they said what they saw on that day, just something that they could not imagine. They had to clean up a home where terrorists went in and murdered the family, took a baby out of a pregnant woman, and then sat down near the corpses of the family and ate their leftovers. This is the barbarism that we are fighting day in and day out, and the scariest thing is it's being denied already. The Israeli government has called a press conference for tomorrow to show video from the body cams recovered from Hamas terrorists to show what they did, because people would not believe it. I never understood how people could deny the Holocaust. The Holocaust is more than 75 years ago. People are denying what happened 2 weeks ago, and we have to stop that, because never again is now. I had the privilege of serving in the IDF. A lot of the people in the room have, but all of you are soldiers on the media battlefield fighting for Israel. Yeah. And as we say at Honest Reporting, the main organization fighting for Israel in international mainstream and social media, winning on the media battlefield is the key to winning on the military battlefield. And you can all do your part. In this room, how many of you are on Facebook? How many of you are on X, formerly known as Twitter? You're embarrassed to say. How many of you are on Instagram? How many of you are on Telegram? How many of you are on TikTok? How many of you are on Snapchat? None of you. Okay, that little girl. How many of you are on LinkedIn? Tell the world what's happening. Make sure everybody knows. You can do your part. At Honest Reporting in the past year, thanks to people like you who tell us when they find things that are disgusting in the media, we have gotten, over the past year, 6 anti-Semitic Hamas and Hitler-praising journalists fired including 1 at CNN and 3 at the New York Times. But one of the New York Times journalists who praised Hitler on social media has been rehired. The New York Times rehired a Nazi. The conflict in Gaza is being reported to the world by the New York Times by a Nazi. And when we complained to them, they defended their decision and said that he's reporting things professionally. New York Times, there is no professional Nazi. The Associated Press, their main reporter in Gaza, reporting about the war until a week ago, said on his social media in English that Israel needs to be annihilated. He has been suspended, not fired. So what I'm asking you to do, take out your phones if the data here is still working with what's going on here with so many people. Go to honestreporting.com/takeaction. Sign the petition that says get this guy from the AP fired. Sign the email to the New York Times saying that this conflict cannot be reported by a Nazi. Go and click the buttons that says subscribe, and there's a green button too. And any help can be appreciated. The development director of Honest Reporting is sitting in the front row. She's the only blonde in the room. I want to thank the Simon Wiesenthal Center, to Allison and to Rabbi Cooper for putting together this amazing and necessary event. And the message of Rabbi Cooper that he's going to say right now needs to resonate throughout the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gil. Gil is on his way to give another speech this afternoon at a church. So again, we didn't know he was going to be in town, and we were really pleased and privileged to have Gil speak with us. I told you at the beginning I would forget some names. I did. Sorry about that. Ken Kuhn, who is from the Skokie, is a Skokie commissioner. Senator Ram Villavalom, and two very good friends who will be speaking later, which is why I didn't give their names earlier, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that they're here with us today. State Senator Laura Fine and Representative Jennifer Gong-Gershowitz. As I indicated, I'm pleased to be hosting this on behalf of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, but now you're going to hear from somebody who really is within the central workings of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Rabbi Abraham Cooper is Associate Dean and Director of the Global Social Action for the Simon Wiesenthal Center and serves as the Chair of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. Rabbi?
I'd like to ask two of my colleagues to please stand and be recognized. Rabbi Meyer May is the Executive Director of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. You'll be hearing from him shortly. If you please rise. And I also would like for everyone here in the room to meet Rick Eaton. Rick, if you would rise. Let me explain who Rick Eaton is and why he's here in Chicago. Tomorrow morning, Rick will be briefing somewhere between 20 and 40 top intelligence and law enforcement officials in and around Chicagoland. He is in charge of our Digital Terrorism and Hate Project for the last 30 years. He's one of the world's great experts on this area, and we won't speak too much other than to let you know on this issue that we have someone currently embedded in the Middle East who's probably working 18 hours a day on Telegram and on TikTok and all the rest, and delivering to us, even before that horrible Shabbat, what's going on social media. It is a battle that we haven't yet fully understood, and we haven't yet fully arrived to fight back. So I'm especially honored to introduce you all to Rick Eaton. You may not see him always in the front lines, but it's actually he and his colleagues who put their entire lives, decades worth, working at the Wiesenthal Center, and well positioned to be your shaliach, your shlichim in this part of the battle. I'm going to do my best to not be so rabbinic tonight, but forgive me, there are three or four points I want to bring home from our perspective. On October 8th, the day after the horrific attacks, a young Palestinian woman, a protester in the UK, I believe it was Manchester, walked over to a Jew and wagged her finger at the Jew and said, "Remember where you were in the 1940s. We Jews have never forgotten, though much of the world has. Been with the Simon Wiesenthal Center for 46 years. I had the honor and privilege of knowing and working with the late, great Simon Wiesenthal for 29 of those years. I never thought I would utter the following words to you. These Nazis are worse than the Nazis who carried out the orders of the final solution. How could you say such a thing? Simon Wiesenthal heroically brought 1,100 Nazi war criminals before the bar of justice over his amazing career from the day he was liberated by US troops in Mauthausen until his death when he was 96 years old. It could have been 11,000 or even more, but one of the fundamental challenges to the few people who actually cared about that issue was the fact that the Nazis strove to erase, to obliterate, to remove all evidence of their mass murders until it became so overwhelming that they ultimately failed. But it had a great impact on many of those cases. You've already heard from the Consul General that October 7th was the day of this largest mass murder of Jews since the defeat of Hitler in 1945. These Nazis live streamed their murders. These Nazis took videos of what they did to our sisters and brothers and mothers and grandparents and, yes, babies. These Nazis who have the phones of so many of the people that they kidnapped and raped. You know some of the details. I won't go into the gory, horrific details. But they would then call a family member or a friend, show the suffering of the loved one, and then execute them live. Now, the world demands a ceasefire. Were there calls for ceasefires at Normandy or in Berlin in 1945? Here's our answer to the young Palestinian protester in Manchester, and I'm afraid thousands and thousands of others who have embraced, who have internalized, who are promoting the narrative of terrorist Hamas. 2023 is not 1940s. But we were taught a key lesson about survival at Auschwitz. I want to share with you, some of you may have known this great person, Rav Tzvi Hirsch Meisels, Zatzal, who lived in Chicago, I believe, for decades, who wrote an amazing sefer called Mekadshe Hashem. In it, he shares a story that stays with me every day. He was part of forced labor at Auschwitz. At the end of those horrific days when they stumbled back to get a few hours, 3 or 4 people on the boards that passed for beds, Rabbi Meisels, do you know what he did? He urged the people in his group, all kinds of Jews, give him a few more minutes. He wants to share a Dvar Torah with them. A Dvar Torah at Auschwitz? But many came to him, lookouts worrying about the capos. If they'd been caught, they'd all be executed. And he said an amazing thing that's based on one letter in the alphabet. We all know that when Moses came before Pharaoh the first time, it was a complete disaster. And Pharaoh wanted to put a nail in the coffin of these supposed 2 leaders, and he decided to tell the taskmasters, Lo tosifun, no more, don't add any of those ingredients that they need to build the pyramids. From now on, let the slaves get up an hour or 2 earlier, and they'll learn once and for all not to listen to this wild-eyed guy by name of Moses. What Rav Tzvi points out is if you look in Shemot, the word tosifun means to give extra, to give more, lahosif. But if you look at the word, it has an aleph in it. And so it comes from the root of asefa, of gathering. And what he said was, at Auschwitz, to people who did not know if they would live another day, every single tyrant, every enemy of the Jewish people, they understood better than us what happens when even 2 Jews get together. What happens when tomorrow you're going to make those 2 or 3 phone calls or do a Zoom with people in Eretz Israel? They know that when you have 2 Jews together, 3 Jews together, 1,000, 2,000 Jews together, that's a force that cannot be broken. And so Pharaoh actually made 2 gzerot. One, hit them physically, make them work harder, and number 2, hit them spiritually. Don't let Jews come together. And you know what we learned from Rav Tzvi Meisels? From Auschwitz? Exactly a lesson that maybe took all the way to 2023 for us to internalize. It took the Hamas barbarians who checked off every single crime against humanity imaginable to wake the Jewish people out of its slumber. We have no choice. We all have differences, but the most important lesson is the lesson that was taught by Pharaoh, by Hitler, by Stalin, and by, unfortunately, now Hamas. They know, our enemies know better, know best of what it means for Jews to come together. The second lesson. I was with Mr. Wiesenthal in 1980, not far from here, I think in Ohio. I was young then, but I'm not now, so I can't remember exactly where. But I remember the question from a young person in the audience. And he asked him an interesting question. Mr. Wiesenthal, were you surprised how many Nazis there were in Europe? His answer, no, I wasn't surprised by how many Nazis there were in Europe, but I was shocked by how few anti-Nazis there were in Europe. We thank President Biden for the moral clarity that he showed in the collective hug to the Jewish people. In which every thinking person could understand that Hamas is evil. And yet, there are so many people today, powerful people in the United States of America, who won't say a word, for whom nothing has changed. We'd like to urge President Biden to convene a meeting at the White House with the CEOs of the major corporations, with the university presidents who correctly spoke out for Black Lives Matter, who collectively spoke out for the suffering people in the Ukraine. But when it comes to dead Jews, we hear only crickets. We need more anti-Nazis. That's a job for each of us here. Number three, I guess this is why we have Yom Kippur. For decades, the Simon Wiesenthal Center has been an NGO at the United Nations. On Tuesday morning, I'll be at the UN. I'll meet with the number 2 guy there, who's a wonderful, wonderful human being. But if you look at what's been going on at the UN, especially at the United Nations Human Rights Council, where immediately after the mass murder of our loved ones, they called for a moment of silence for Palestinians. Not a word about Jews. Believe it or not, later this week, Iran will assume the chair of the United Nations Human Rights Council Social Forum. We hope everyone here will sign our petition to President Biden to thank him, but also to ask the United Nations to lead an international call to hold today's Nazis, their enablers, their sponsors, culpable before the bar of justice. And above all, we demand that all hostages be immediately released. Finally, I want to quote another Gadol who spent decades here in Chicago, Rabbi Soloveitchik Zatzal. We just read Parshat Noah on Shabbat. And in there, God used the rainbow as a sign, as the covenant with humanity, that he would never bring an end to humanity again the way the flood basically did. And Rav Soloveitchik, brilliant scholar, but also great understanding of the human condition, he points out just 2 items about the rainbow. Number 1, God was telling the survivors then and telling us now that rays of sunlight can penetrate the most ominous clouds. He said, quote, "Don't become desperate when you see members of society deviating from the right path," quote unquote. Secondly, the rainbow symbolizes the diversity of humankind. Rainbow is result of refraction of the sun's rays from a single white light that creates the entire spectrum of colors. We are not alone. This is not 1939. And it wasn't just the amazing pastor, who I wish maybe someday would be my chazan, but throughout the crowd this evening, last week when we had 7,500 marchers at the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles, earlier today when our close friend, Pastor Johnny Moore, spoke on behalf of the hostages at a rally right in front of the United Nations headquarters in Geneva, We are not alone, and we must thank our fellow faith leaders, the churches who on the 8th, the day after, tens of millions of Christians prayed for their souls. We must thank them. We must recognize them. And I think beyond the religious obligations that Christians and Muslims and others feel, I think they absorbed one other lesson that Simon Wiesenthal left us. He always said, it always begins with the Jews. It never ends with the Jews. God bless you.
Two quick follow-ups to what the rabbi said. I understand that Stand With Us, one of our co-sponsors of this event, has passed out throughout the audience pictures of children who are currently being held as hostages. If you have one of those right now, if you could hold that up. Also, going off of what Rabbi Cooper said in terms of the call for a ceasefire, I will paraphrase somebody who is much smarter than I am, who said, remember that if Hamas puts down their weapons, there will be no war. If Israel puts down its weapons, there will be no Israel. I forgot one other person to announce earlier. I promised you that this would happen, and that is Josina Morita, who is a Cook County commissioner and a very good friend to Israel and the Jewish people. I now would like to call up Illinois State Senator Laura Fine.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to thank the Simon Wiesenthal Center and Allison Slovin for organizing this essential event. And thank you to all of you for being with us tonight. It is comforting to be here together this evening. In our darkest times, the strength and support of our community is what reminds us that we are not alone. These past few weeks, we have experienced a roller coaster of emotions: shock, fear, anger, confusion, incredible sadness, and heartbreak. Our world has been shaken and our lives forever changed. But we go on. We wake every day to face a new challenge. We are resilient. The power of our resiliency stems from the support of our incredible Jewish community. Leaders like Alderwoman Deborah Silverstein, who bravely stood up for our Jewish community in the city council despite animosity and threats of violence. We are forever grateful. Thank you. Our community is here for us in a time of need. It offers us a network of care and connections. The strength of our community is the bright light in this time of darkness. We can depend upon each other to help fight feelings of hopelessness. Surrounding ourselves with our friends, family, and neighbors reminds us that we are not alone. It allows us to feel we're part of something larger than ourselves. As we navigate the unthinkable, uncertain, difficult time, it is incredibly helpful to have people who we can turn to. Community members offer us emotional support and the strength that we need. Relying upon our community eliminates that feeling of isolation. We have people to talk to pray with, to cry with. The safety of our community is like a big hug when you really need it. Together, we will navigate these uncharted waters. Glimmers of hope, like the release of our neighbors, remind us never to give up hope. hope for the safe return of all of our loved ones, hope for peace. We have to keep hope alive for future generations. We are strong, we are supportive, and we are resilient. A few years ago, I experienced the enormous impact of the strength of our Jewish community. My husband and I visited Auschwitz, and we were overwhelmed with sadness and emotion. Just when we thought we could no longer digest the horrors, our Jewish community reminded us of the importance of strength, support, hope, and the future. You see, it was at that moment a group of Israeli teens walked through the gates of the camp. They were draped in Israeli flags, singing Hatikva. Hope is alive. Together, we will ensure our community survives and thrives. Again, like the Israeli national anthem reminds us, Hatikva, hope. Am Yisrael Chai.
So I know it appears that this program is running a little long. I ask you to stay seated and to join us till the end. We have a number of speakers coming up who are members of other ethnic groups and other religions who are here to support us and to be with us. And so we will get to them in just a moment. I've also been told by the law enforcement folks outside that they are dealing with some type of incident, and they've asked us to keep people inside until they're able to clear it up. So if you could bear with us, we'll move the program as quickly as we can, but there's some really inspirational people who want to give us their remarks. Next, let me call up Illinois Representative Jennifer Gong-Gershowitz.
Good evening, everyone. I think it's fair to say that all of us have been struggling to find the right words for this moment, and I'm not sure that I have them, but I'm going to try. Like you, I awoke on October 7th to the news that Hamas rockets were once again raining down on the Israeli people, Jewish, Muslim, and Christian alike. As reports of mass atrocities and abductions by Hamas began to circulate the airwaves, I found myself consumed by a profound sense of grief. Grief that turned to anguish and anger and then fear. As a mother of 3 Jewish sons who are old enough to be out in the world, I am left to wonder if anywhere on earth will ever feel truly safe for my children. There are Jews all over the world, though not necessarily by choice. We have faced expulsion, persecution, annihilation. Those are the root causes of the Jewish diaspora before and after the Holocaust. To this day, right here in the United States, we face anti-Semitism and hatred. Yet, we hope. In Israel, rockets and bombs are falling. Children are going to sleep in fear. Mothers of IDF troops are saying tearful goodbyes for what may be the last time. Or shipping out for duty themselves, trying to balance family, processing grief, and making funeral arrangements while defending their nation. Yet, we hope. My given name in English is Jennifer Hope. My Hebrew name, Tikva, means hope. But hope is not simply a noun, it must also be a verb. To hope, not just for my children, but for a people who so desperately need to be brought from the depths of despair to the comfort of hope. From darkness into light and from danger to safety, together we hope. The story of the Jewish people is one of hope and survival. We have survived for millennia not because we were the strongest, the most numerous, or the most powerful, but because we have never given up on hope. In this moment, I pray that as a people, we will have the strength to do what we have always done. We will come together. We will pick up the pieces, and we'll pray for light in the darkness. Our hearts ache with the people who are suffering violence, kidnapping, deprivation, and fear. In Israel and throughout the diaspora, now is the time to come together, to hope, and work for a better future. The Shema, the watchword of our faith, was handed down to the Jewish people in Torah and has been recited in prayer by the Jewish people for thousands of years. Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel. These words hold the hope of a people passed down from one generation to the next. They unite us as a people and lend us strength in times of struggle. They kindle the spark of hope in a cold, dark night, and they will carry us through these times. Together, Am Yisrael Chai.
Last Sunday, Alice and I were privileged and honored to attend a Stand with Israel event at the Quentin Road Baptist Church in Lake Zurich. I would now like to call to the podium Pastor Jim Scudder, Jr., the senior pastor of that
church. Good evening. My wife and I, Karen, we're so thankful to be here, and it's so good to be able to stand in solidarity with the Jewish people and with the wonderful nation of Israel. Now, he said I'm a Baptist pastor, and you're wondering how I can say my name in 3 minutes, let alone remarks. But I'm just going to speak from my heart for a moment, and then I think we can go to Scripture and get solace there from the Psalms. And I think that's a great place to go when we're worried, we're scared, we don't know what's going on, we feel like the world is against us. But if God is for you, then you don't have to fear, and you don't have to worry about that. I'm sure you've heard the story of David and Goliath. And a little shepherd boy with a sling, dressed as his God, the Lord is my shepherd, defeated this giant of a man, this giant of a civilization, the Philistines, and Goliath. Goliath was dressed, the Bible says, in scale, like armor. And I believe he was dressed like his god, Dagon. But Dagon fell, didn't he, when the Ark of the Covenant was before that false god. So don't fear when you know the one true God. You have God on your side, and David knew that. David said, is there not a cause? Am I not? Why are we allowing this person to say these blasphemous things? And so when we have a television program that's on TBN, it's the largest Christian television network in the country. And we do a lot of filming in Israel, and we've been over to the Valley of Elah. And we actually just aired that episode, and we're going to air another one from the city of David, where they might have found David's palace. We're telling the story of King David. But when we were filming in Elah, I just pictured this little boy with 5 smooth stones going against this giant. And that's what I want you to remember, is that there's hope. There's hope, even when it's challenging, even when it seems like we're alone, there's hope. Let me read you Psalm 22, because this is a psalm of David, and David is reflective of the trials and the problems in his life. And there were many. And there's a lot of interesting things about David, and we wonder, why was he called a man after God's own heart? A man whom had actually committed a couple of pretty serious sins. Well, I believe it's because he suffered. He suffered. In Psalm 22, he says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me and from the words of my roaring? And I think as I heard the news of the terrible atrocities happening in Israel, this place that I've been going to so many times since I was a child, and I have so many friends and I have so much love for this nation of Israel. And I'm hearing just how could this have happened? How could such a secure and powerful military allow this to happen? And nobody knows. Nobody knows. And my heart broke, and I wondered, Lord, why and how? And we have these questions. David had these questions. Oh my God, I cry in the daytime, but thou hearest not, and in the night season, and am not silent. But thou art holy, O thou that inhabitest the praises of Israel. Our fathers trusted in thee. They trusted, and thou didst deliver them. As I read these words, I think of what it must have been like for those that were in harm's way, in those communities, in those children, and even the children that are in captivity. Now, what are they thinking and what are their thoughts? And my heart breaks as I have had children and now grandchildren. And I just, everything within me yearns and my heart breaks. And I have to go to the Psalms. I have to get comfort from the Psalms. David continues in verse 14, I am poured out like water. All of my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted in the midst of my bowels. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue cleaveth to my jaws. Thou hast brought me into the dust of death, for dogs have compassed me. The assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. I may tell all of my bones. They look and stare upon me. They part my garments among them and cast lots upon my vesture. But be not thou far from me, O Lord. O my strength, haste thee to help me. And then the next psalm is so beautiful and so wonderful. The Psalm of Comfort, Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Words of comfort and solace in really hard times. On behalf of our church, Quentin Road Baptist Church in Lake Zurich, our television and radio ministry in Grace, you can find us on TBN every Wednesday night and also on YouTube. And on behalf of Dayspring Bible College and Seminary, where I serve as president, we stand with you. We stand with Israel.
I do want you to know that at the Stand with Israel event last Sunday at Pastor Scudder's church, there were 1,500 people in attendance. And to my count, only 4 of them were Jewish. So it was a wonderful, inspirational event. Let me now bring up to the podium Steve Sarowitz. Steve is an international philanthropist who promotes unity through universal education and advocates for the elimination of racist, sexism, and nationalism. He is the recipient of the Simon Wiesenthal Center's 2023 Spirit of Courage Award.
Two weeks ago, I was in Israel. I was leading a group of people, Muslim, Christian, a Jewish rabbi, down the slopes of Mount Carmel, taking them down the beautiful terraces of the Baha'i Gardens, leading a tour there. We were walking in unity. We were black, we were brown, we were white, different religions, men and women, different ages, basking in the sunshine of a beautiful day. And when we got down to the bottom of the mountain, this was on a Saturday, we found out what Hamas had done. The leader of that group that I was giving the tour is a friend of mine from Chicago, who's a Palestinian. I myself am a Baha'i of Jewish heritage, and yet we're friends. The true world is the world we were in, the world where we're one human family. Hamas seeks to take that away from us. I agree that Hamas is more evil than the Nazis that killed 20 members of my family, including my great-grandfather, who I'm named after. I agree that they must be stopped. And I agree that what they did was an unjustifiable act against all of humanity. As a Baha'i, I stand for justice. The Baha'i writings say, "Justice is the best beloved of all things in my sight. Turn not away therefrom if thou desirest me, and neglect it not that I may confide in thee." What Hamas did was an act against humanity. As was mentioned before, they didn't shoot their rockets, and they're still shooting their rockets at Jews. They shoot them at the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims, everyone who lives in Israel. And the army that defends Israel is not just a Jewish army. There are Christians, there are Druze serving in that army. This is not a fight merely about Judaism. This is a fight about justice and injustice. I am just grateful to be here today with you. I've been a Baha'i for 8 years. When I became a Baha'i, my dad said, "Well, you betrayed those people who died in the Holocaust, those 20 family members." I said, "Dad, I can't go back and I can't save those lives. I can't save my great-grandfather. And I can't save my cousins that I never met, people my dad's age." My dad is standing right in front of me. He's 86 right now. And his cousins, all his age, were killed in the Holocaust in Poland, brutally in the concentration camps. And there is no doubt in my mind that if Hamas could, and if Hezbollah could, they would do the same and worse. But what I can do, I said to him, is I can spread peace. I can spread the idea, which I do every day in many different ways, that we're one human family. There isn't a Jewish God, or a Christian God, or a Muslim God, or a Baha'i God. There's just a God who created all of us, all different colors, flowers of a garden. And he created us to be at peace and harmony. It's a difficult thing to think of right now, but we must remember that all of us are human. Yes, when a ravenous wolf is attacking you, you must kill that wolf to save your family. But we also must never forget that we're all part of the same human family. Another thing the Baha'i Faith says is that peace is not only possible, but inevitable. In our darkest hour, we must never forget that. We must never forget what Israel stands for. Israel is not just a home for the Jews. It's a home for humanity and a beacon of peace. Israel is a tremendous country. The second leading country. I've been to Israel 20 times over the last 9 years. The second leading country for startups in the entire world. Israel is a miracle that's won several wars that it never should have won. There's no doubt that God's light is on Israel. And to my Jewish friends and family members who are suffering right now, I stand with you. I stand with you in your pain. I stand against all injustice, whether it be racism, sexism, nationalism, or religious prejudice. I stand with humanity. And right now, humanity must stand with the Jews. I also feel for the Palestinians that are getting killed. But I'm going to say this and say it very clearly. There are Palestinians, 2 million of them, that live in Israel, including my very good friend Naeem, who runs a center that we started there for Jews and Palestinians. Everyone's talking about the 2 million Palestinians in Gaza. There are 2 million Palestinians who live in Israel who need to be defended against this monster who would not stop at killing the Jews. And we have to remember who's pulling the strings. And I'm going to say this, it's been alluded to, but I want to say it very clearly. This is all the work of Iran, the government of Iran. I unfortunately cannot go to Iran. I made a movie they didn't like. But I can say that this is a story of good and evil. I appreciate that everyone is sitting here peacefully My brother Chris over there, who sang so beautifully. Daryl Davis, one of my heroes, that I'm so privileged to meet today. I'm happy to see people of different colors, different ages, different genders, different religions here, pastors who are standing in solidarity. This is not a Jewish problem. This is a human problem. This was a crime against humanity, and every human must stand against this crime. And I'm going to end with the words of Abdul-Baha over a century ago. He wrote these words after the Battle of Benghazi. He wrote, "I charge you all, each one of you, concentrate all the thoughts of your heart on love and unity. When a thought of war comes, oppose it with a stronger thought of peace. A thought of hatred must be destroyed by a more powerful thought of love. Thoughts of war bring destruction to all harmony, well-being, restfulness, and content. Thoughts of love are constructive of brotherhood, peace, friendship, and happiness. When soldiers of war, soldiers of the world, draw their swords to kill, soldiers of God clasp each other's hands. So may all of the savagery of man disappear by the mercy of God, working through the pure in heart and the sincere in soul. Do not think the peace of the world an ideal impossible to attain. Nothing is impossible to the divine benevolence of God. If you desire with all your heart friendship with every race on earth, your thought, spiritual and positive, will spread. It will become the desire of others, growing stronger and stronger until it reaches the minds of all men. I stand here together with my Jewish brothers and sisters, my Christian brothers and sisters, and my Muslim brothers and sisters, and my Baha'i brothers and sisters, people of all faiths and no faiths. Anyone who thirsts and yearns for justice, I stand with you today against this evil that Hamas has wrought and against what Iran is doing. We must learn to live in peace. We have weapons that are far too powerful now. May Israel be successful in defending itself from this monstrous evil, and I thank you all for having me here to speak today.
Please join us next spring when we properly honor Steve. And one thing that Steve mentioned that's very important, this piano is not up here because it was here from some other event that took place a couple of weeks ago. Daryl Davis is going to honor us with a song in just a few minutes as soon as we finish the speakers. There have been references to college campuses and what's going on the college campuses and the need for us to be more involved. Let me introduce you to Rob Derdiger, who is the CEO of Alpha Epsilon Pi Fraternity.
Good evening, everybody. You may ask yourself, why is the CEO of a fraternity here to talk to us? I'm not the CEO of just any fraternity. I'm the CEO of Alpha Epsilon Pi Fraternity. Alpha Epsilon Pi, AE Pi, as it may be known to some of you, is a loud, proud Jewish and Zionist fraternity. AE Pi is the Jewish community's fraternity. It is your fraternity. We represent undergraduates on over 155 college campuses throughout North America, the United Kingdom, and Israel. We have over 8,500 active undergraduates and 110,000 alumni. We have 3 chapters in Israel with over 50 undergraduate members currently called into active duty in the IDF on the front lines of Gaza and in the north. Over 200 more alums are serving active duty in the Israeli military. Our undergraduates in Israel who are not serving in active duty have been activated to bring critical supplies to their brothers in service. But AEPI is not just in Israel. As the Council General referred to, North American college campuses are another front to this war. Just as they always have been, they're the epicenter of politics and policy in our country. Anti-Semitism on campus is ever present, and we know the histories of systemic anti-Semitism on campuses. In recent memory, from around the year 2000 to 2019, anti-Israel activity was really at the forefront. In 2019 to 2023, we saw a pretty rapid, dramatic shift toward what I called classic anti-Semitism. Either way, there was no need to hide behind anti-Zionism. But in the last 2 weeks, we have seen the collaboration and consolidation of all of these forms of anti-Semitism on campus. We know it when we see it. We know what it is. In the last 2 weeks, over 43 sleeper cells of Students for Justice in Palestine have been reactivated. And I call these sleeper cells because organizations that support and promote terrorism are themselves terrorist organizations, and they need to be referred to as such. The scary part is that these are recognized student organizations on campus. They often receive university resources and university funding. They likely exist at your alma mater. In the last 2 weeks, 144 substantial anti-Israel activations have occurred on campuses. AEPI has tracked 70 different anti-Semitic incidents. 6 AEPI houses have been vandalized, and just this weekend, 2 of our members were physically assaulted on campus. AEPI is ready to lead. Day in and day out, for many, many years, we have prepared our undergraduates because we know the truth that we read in the Haggadah every year. In every generation, an enemy will rise up against you. 8,500 activist AEPIs are on campus fighting back against SJP activists and demanding that administrations take action. These activists will not let false narratives be the only narratives on campus. They're taking to social media using their immense social reach, posting thousands of messages of solidarity with Israel. Over 400 pro-Israel activations, programs, protests, vigils, and more have also happened in the last 2 weeks, including 81 alone last Monday on AEPI's Day of Strength. Over $150,000 have been raised by our undergraduates. We are fighting back, and we are going to continue to fight back. But I want all of you to join us. I want you to write to your colleges and make sure that they're protecting Jewish students and promoting the truth. Before you send your contributions, make sure that they denounced and condemned the terrorist attacks in Israel. If they didn't, don't send those checks. Write to your state representatives and ensure that our public universities do not fund organizations that excuse terrorism and promote anti-Semitism. And if we must write to the Department of Higher Education to demand enforcement of Title VI. I'm going to end. We will win. We will win on campus. We will win this war in Israel because we are strong and because Hashem is with us. I'm Yisrael.
A few words from our good friends in the Italian community. I call up Ron Onesti, President of the Joint Civic Committee of Italian Americans.
Thank you all. The Joint Civic Committee of Italian Americans is the Congress of over 60 Italian American organizations in the Chicago area. We stand here today filled with anguish, filled with disbelief, filled with anger, filled with hope, and filled with faith. In a time when land origins and ethnic sensitivity is at its highest, it is also a time when respect for human life is at one of the lowest levels in human history. Each day, we fight for our beliefs, and we also remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, either by choice or as a faultless victim. We think of those beautiful young faces, faces of the future, faces that provided sweetness in our daily recipe of existence, mercilessly obliterated in a sea of cowardice and hatred. Their only crimes were simply being and believing. What would the world be had this horrid energy be rechanneled into positivity, sensitivity, and innovation? These tragedies not only lie in who and what was lost, but also by the decimation of what was to come. As Italian Americans, we pray for our Jewish brothers and sisters. 4,000 years of rich history, devotion, and pain. What your culture and faith has given to the world is immeasurable, and we bow our heads in thanks, respect, and love to all of you. But today, as we do every day, we cannot lose the faith. It is the altruistic wall of pride and the power of righteousness that provides us with the strength to carry on. As good and righteous people, we cannot forget and we cannot give in. God bless you all, my Jewish brothers and sisters. You will all remain in our prayers as we stand beside you, as we all seek justice and the respectful perpetuation of our histories and of our cultures. Thank you for the honor of speaking to you all here today. God bless you.
Daryl, limber up your fingers. You're really soon to perform. Endy Zemenides is the executive director of the Hellenic American Leadership Council, which is the only Greek-American think tank and action in the United States. Endy, please come to the podium.
I don't know that we're the only one, but we're the ones here now. And here in solidarity, to grieve. You know, we're here in action, but you know, it's when we're moving, it's sometimes impossible. And I know everyone in this room, when they've had a moment of quiet, their hearts have been broken, and we grieve with you. We're here also to show the same resilience and the steel in our spine. And for myself, as a Greek American, to follow in the footsteps of Prime Minister Mitsotakis of Greece, who unequivocally condemned Hamas and affirmed Israel's right to defend itself. To follow in the footsteps of the president of Cyprus, Nikos Christodoulidis, who also had unequivocal condemnation, affirmed Israel's right to defend itself, and went to Israel yesterday. And to follow in the footsteps of World War II era leaders of my church, who are now counted among the righteous among nations. Archbishop Damaskinos, Bishop Chrysostomus. And in their memory, Rabbi, to answer your call and accept your challenge and say, we are anti-Nazis. We cannot start any discussion, every discussion about the world we live in has to start with, on October 7th, more Jews were killed in a single day than any day since the Holocaust. But I'll remember the Holocaust, and we all have read that poem. First, they came for the communists, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't communist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak up because I wasn't Jewish. Well, when that poem was uttered, there was not an Israel. When that poem was uttered, there were not enough anti-Nazis. So, today, when they say, we came for the Jews again, we say not this time. And for those who want to give disingenuous calls for ceasefires and claim they're interested in peace, let's remember what Hamas was trying to stop. Israel was making peace. The last 10 years, whether it was the age of trilaterals, the Abraham Accords, and what was about to be sealed, that's what Hamas and its sponsors and enablers in Tehran, in Doha, and in Ankara wanted to stop. And there will be peace again one day. Israel will resume its course of peace. But Hamas will not be part of that peace, and Hamas will not be on this earth. I hope my words are of some comfort, but words are not enough. I will be taking my senior leadership to Washington, D.C. the day after tomorrow. And along with former Congressman Ted Deutsch, we will be taking families of the hostages to Congress. Congress will learn that there are anti-Nazis, and we stand with you saying, not this time.
Okay, you heard him sing, and now you're going to hear him speak, our friend Pastor Chris.
I don't know why they decided to put a black Pentecostal preacher last, but if you love Israel, make some noise in here, everybody. Come on. I'm sorry, that wasn't enough for me. If you love Israel, make some noise in here. Now, I've said it many times, I understand the words never again now more than ever. And the past 2 weeks have been mind-blowing, of course, and heart-wrenching. And this horrific, heinous attack on Israel and the Jewish people will forever be remembered and never forgotten. I was supposed to be in Israel when the war broke out, but my father had a stroke. The other day, he had a second stroke. Last night, and he's in Northwestern Hospital, last night, my daughter had symptoms of a stroke, and she's currently in the hospital. But I had to be here today because when your friends are going through, when your friends need you, you ought to show up. And I wanted to tell all of you all, know this, especially as long as I'm alive and as long as I'm leading two of the greatest churches, Brightstar and St. James, you will never be alone. You will never be alone. You will never, ever be alone. We are better together. Dr. Dr. King said it best. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Standing up, speaking up, showing up is the absolute right thing to do, especially for people that you call friends. Sadly, many people spew hateful words under the banner of free speech. But in my humble opinion, it should not be considered free when it costs the rest of us our peace, our sanity, and our tranquility. It affects our quality of life, and it gives fear free reign in our society. And this is no way to live. And it affects all of us, every one of us. But I do take this time to raise a concern that somewhat frustrates me. After more than a decade of working to build bridges between the African American and Jewish communities in Chicago and around this country, why is it we only come together during Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday? Why is it we only come together when tragedies happen or when there's a threat of racism or anti-Semitism? It is abundantly clear to me that episodic efforts of building bridges between black people and Jewish people, they don't work. They aren't sustainable. And feel-good moments are not enough. We must do more. Now, I need y'all to act like you are in a black church on the south side of Chicago. That's right. I need you to talk to me and shout these words: we must do more. We must do more. No, y'all still on the north side with that. I need you to say it like you're at Brightstar St. James. Shout, we must do more. We must do more. And if you say the next words and you believe it, I need you to go crazy with a real loud shout. Shout, we are better together. Make some noise if you believe that. We're better together. Now, let me just say this. Alderman, good to see you. Thank you for your courage. Let me just say this. My brother from another mother, Steve Sarowitz, who some would say is taller than me. But Steve, I can still beat you in basketball. He taught me a powerful principle from Abdul-Baha. It says, where there is love, nothing is too much trouble. And there is always time. You have to take time to do the work, to have friends before you need friends. And today, I don't know if you all can use a few more friends with a real good tan. But as you can see, I bought some other African American Christian friends that really, would y'all stand? Y'all make some noise for them. They came here to say, you are not alone. You are not alone. So let me also say something that you may not fully understand and some of you all may not like. When black people were saying Black Lives Matter, we were not talking about an organization. Right. 99.99% of African Americans who don't even know about the organization, they're talking about a mindset. They're talking about a movement, not an organization. No one organization speaks for an entire race or group of people. And if you have close black friends that you can speak talkless with, if you have some black friends, you can ask them. Tell me about this. And talk real and nobody gets offended. And when George Floyd was murdered, many of you showed up for black people. And now we are showing up for you. We are speaking up for you. We are standing up for you. on, shout better together.
Better together.
I said shout better together.
Better together.
Just like during the civil rights movement, we should be together. Now, when there are atrocities in the United States, we often say thoughts and prayers are not enough. And at that same time now, that truth applies right now. Remember September 11th and how after experiencing such a non-provoked attack, our entire country rallied and unified against terrorism. Make no mistake about it. This war that has been declared is not against Palestinian people. It is against a rightful enemy, Hamas. A terrorist organization that has now caused many innocent Palestinians to suffer in Gaza beyond what has been experienced or ever imagined. And innocent Palestinians should not be dying or suffering. And yes, we are heartbroken watching innocent Palestinian children and families die and suffer. During my 7 trips to Israel, and yes, I did say 7, that means I'm more Jewish than many of you all in this room. Pretty soon, Steve, I'm thinking about making Aliyah. All my trips over there, I've had the privilege to get a glimpse of Israel geographically, archaeologically, economically, agriculturally, militarily, spiritually. And I learned that this very special place is holy for Israelis and Palestinians alike. Christians, Jews, Muslims alike, Druze, Baha'is, and so many others. And many would like the world to believe this conflict is between these two groups of people who are both victims to the inhumane behaviors of Hamas, a terrorist group. But as Christians, it is very well possible to grieve for both. And it is essential that we pray for both. We are responsible to speak out against any injustices, any atrocities, any violence perpetrated on all of humanity. Unimaginable numbers of Israelis and Palestinians are now victims, and so many others, due to this unprovoked and clearly previously planned attack. We don't have to agree with the policies of Israeli government to stand against terrorism. We don't have to fully understand the Palestinian plight to stand against terrorism. We don't even have to feel compelled to choose a side due to social media pressures and propaganda that lacks historical or biblical context. But we all must speak out against terrorism, period. We all must speak out against terrorism, period. We all must speak out, stand up, show up, speak up against terrorism, period. We must. We must. I'm ending now, but I'll tell you this. My faith demands it. My Bible requires it. Yes. My heart expects it. And I believe standing against all terrorism is a moral and spiritual responsibility. I often say our communities are better together, and for me, those words cannot just be words. They cannot be void of action. One of my favorite scriptures in the Bible, it says, Proverbs 17:17, a friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. And I believe there's nothing more profound than what I call the ministry of presence, showing up. To me, that is what unconditional love and authentic relationship requires. Here's what Dr. King said: returning hate for hate multiplies hate, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And I work with many Jewish synagogues, organizations, and Hillels in our city and beyond. I've been to Israel 7 times, co-led more than 75 faith leaders to the Holy Land. Brightstar Community Outreach, our 501c3, has successfully partnered with Natal and Tel Aviv to provide trauma counseling to 50,000 Chicagoans with the Israeli model. Heck, I'm not only a black Christian from the hood that sings Hatikva. No, I say to the CEO of Alpha Epsilon Pi, what he didn't know is this black dude is an honorary member of Alpha Epsilon Pi. A few years ago, I received the Congressman Eliot Engel Award because I go on college campuses teaching young black people and young Jewish people how to build bridges with one another on college campuses, how to fight BDS, how to combat anti-Semitism, and how to combat racism. And they ask me, how do you get them to do it? It's real simple. I say to our Jewish students on campus, you invite the black people to your Shabbat dinner, and the black people will invite you to our Shabbat barbecue. It's just that simple. I got to go to my seat and I got to get back to the South Side. But Booker T. Washington and Julius Rosenwald, Dr. King, and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel did it then. Here's the question. Who will do it now? Not just words, but the work. They did the work. And we cannot continue to take credit for the work that they did. It's our turn now. Our episodic events and feel-good efforts pale in comparison to what our communities did together decades ago. And we should be asking ourselves, what more can we do? Psalm 122, verse 6 through 8 declares, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee. Peace be within thy walls and prosperity within thy palaces. For my brethren, verse 8 says, my brethren and companions' sake, I will say now, peace be within thee. We pray for all the victims, all the families. We maintain hope that those taken hostage will return home to their families safely. Every one of them. We pray for the leadership of our governments around the world who carry the unimaginable weight of establishing sustained peace in that region and around the globe. I say this proudly. Two things. Number one, you are not alone. Number two, Yisrael Kai. God bless you all.
What a mensch. What do you think? To close our remarks, and by the way, I told you it'd be worth staying around listening to all of our speakers, some inspirational words from Pastor Chris. I will call up for brief remarks by Rabbi Meyer May, who is the Executive Director and Chief Development Officer of the Simon Wiesenthal Center.
Whoever thought of putting a rabbi after a black Pentecostal minister is looking for a job. Even a volunteer. I have the solemn responsibility tonight to offer psalms for the victims of October 7th, for the soldiers and families that have been so devastated by what took place, for the hundreds of hostages, children, mothers, and fathers. So please rise. Shir La'Ma'alos, Eso Einai El Hehorim, Me'ayin Yavo Ezri. Ezri Me'im Adonai Osei
shamayim v'oretz. Al yitein lamot raglecha, al yonum shomrecha. Hinei lo yonum v'lo yishon, shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilecha, yad yeminecha. Yomam Hashem lo yakeka, v'yoreach baloilo. Adonai yishmorecha mikol ra, yishmor es nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzescha uboecha me'ata v'yad olam. Psalm 130. Shir hamalos mimamakim kirasicha Adonai. Adonai shimo bekoli, tiena aznecha kashuvos lekol tachanunoi. Im avonos tishmor ya Adonai mi amod. Ki mecha haslicha leman tivorei. Ki v'esi Adonai kivso nafshi v'lidvaro choti. Nafshi l'Adonai mishomerim laboker, shomerim laboker. Rachel Yisrael el Adonai, ki im Adonai hachesed, v'arbei mofidus. Hu yiftes Israel mikol avonosoi.
Please be seated. I don't know if any of you, I'm sure all of you know of Daryl Davis. If you don't, I just tell you GTS. That's what my kids tell me. Google that stuff. Daryl is an American R&B musician and activist. He has played with Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis, B.B. King, and he has helped more than 200 Klansmen walk out of the KKK. He is the winner of the 2023 Simon Wiesenthal Center National Leadership Award. He personally met Simon Wiesenthal. Incredible story how this all comes back around. I've had the privilege and pleasure to spend the last day with Daryl, and he's a truly amazing and wonderful human being. He didn't have to come here. We postponed the program at which he was getting an award, but he said, what can I do to be a part of your program, standing with the state of Israel and my friends, the Jewish people. So I called to the piano Daryl Davis to present to us.
It's a pleasure and an honor to be here and offer my participation in this event. And a lot of the speeches tonight have been about working together, collaborating, and that's what is needed. That's what's always needed with humanity. And I invite you to join me in singing this great song that was written by Wilbert Harrison, the man who had a big hit with the song Kansas City. And then later it's called Let's Work Together. It again became another hit for a group called Can Heat. So I think the words are going to be on the screen. If you please join me in singing the song. Together we will stand, divided we'll fall. Come on now, people, let's get on the ball and work together. Come on, let's work together. Now, people, for together we will stand, every boy, girl, woman, and a man. Now, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, and the road you travel has been all uphill, let's work together. We will stand, every boy, girl, woman, and a man. Hey, 2 or 3 minutes. 2 or 3 hours, what does it matter with this life of ours? Let's work together. Come on, let's work together. Now, people, for together we will stand, every boy, girl, woman, and a man. Well, now make someone happy, make someone smile. Let's work together and make life worthwhile. Let's work together. Come on, let's work together. Now, people, for together we will stand, every boy, girl, woman, and a man. Let's do that last verse together. Come on now. Well, now make someone happy, make someone smile. Let's work together and make life worthwhile. Let's work together. Come on, let's work together. Now, people, for together we will stand, every boy, girl, woman, and a man. I said together we will stand, every boy, girl, woman, and a man. Well, now together we will stand, every boy, girl, woman, and a man.
Also Google Accidental Courtesy, which is a documentary about Daryl. Let me close by thanking, first of all, Allison Pure-Slovan for helping to put this day together, as well as all of the staff of the Simon Wiesenthal Center and all of the supporters who are listed on our flyer, and all of the people who have been with us today. What it has demonstrated to me is that the spirit of the people in this room proves that Israel will survive. Am Yisrael Chaim. If you would please remain seated for just a moment. Chief Brian Baker from the Skokie Police is going to give us a little bit of guidance on how we're going to be able to leave. So, and the chief is responsible for the security that was here today. So,
thank you all very much.
as I'm sure most, if not all of you, observed when you were on your way in here, there was a protest group that gathered earlier this evening. They grew to a pretty good size. We were able to get them to disperse about an hour ago. What we don't know is if they all went home or if some are still hanging around. So what I'd like to do is give you some options where we can help you get home safely. So if you drove and parked in the immediate lot out front or the one right on the side of the building, what we'd like you to do is go to your car, and then I want you to exit by driving past the front of the building to the right as you walk out the front door and around. There'll be a whole bunch of officers pointing you which direction to go, but you'll basically end up on McCormick and then go north. If you parked in Mariano's and walked, or if you parked in Liquid Town Center and walked, if you would like to stay, we're gonna make those two groups, and then we'll walk you over to those areas after the people that drove here and parked in these lots leave. Does that make sense? So if we could get Liquid Town Center over in this part of the room and Mariano's in this part, and then those of you that drove and parked right here, you can go ahead and go, and thank you all very much and be safe.
Thank you very much. Sorry. No, don't blow you. That was, yeah, thank you.
For a moment, and then got growling. Yeah, like he's the worst.